Charley gets a little tricky at 19 overall, which direction Washington could go. But head coach Ron Rivera's made it pretty clear that they plan to take the best player available and not go for position of need. So, look, you're an expert at doing these mock drafts, at evaluating the guys coming out at the next level. Tell us some of the names Washington could be looking at of that best player.
Well, they got the right idea. Take the best player because you're not going to fill all your needs with one pick. And you're going to have options later on, and sometimes those options later on are actually better than the one you might have taken in the first round. So, linebacker and safety are a couple of needs. All right, so let's talk about linebackers here. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, outside linebacker, weighs about 220, runs probably in the 4.5s, though he hasn't been timed to my knowledge. Then another linebacker that I like is Xavier Collins from Tulsa. Now, I think the guy's an athletic guy who's very instinctive, can slip blocks, make plays. Now, sometimes he gambles a little bit, and good in zone coverage. I haven't seen him in man coverage, so he's projected at the end of the first round. So that would be kind of a reach for them or a trade back. Then at safety, Trevin Morey. He's the best safety to me. He's very athletic. He's instinctive. Good range. I thought he has good ball skills. Those are some guys for the needs. But I think they'll face some other players, maybe, like Najee Harris from Alabama. Now, right now, they like their running backs. I see that. But this guy's better than both of them, in my opinion. He's better than Josh Jacobs, who's had a lot of success coming out of Alabama with the Las Vegas Raiders. So I like him. He's got more speed, better hands than Josh Jacobs. So that's real positive there now for you. Caleb Fairley, a corner from Virginia Tech, seems to be slipping. On tape, this guy didn't play this year. They like their corners, but I think they'd like to get another corner, and potentially this guy might be their best corner. So interesting dilemma that they would face there. But those are some of the names that they could face and some of the decisions. The other one, and I don't think this, I want to bring them up though, is Jaylen Waddle of Alabama. Now, they need to get a receiver, opposite Terry there, McLaurin. And here's this guy. This guy is dynamic. He's Tyreek Hill. He's that good with speed. Now, he's more of a package guy. You give a certain number of plays to, and you run him in that point. But he would change the dimension of what you're doing. You'd now have the two fastest receivers if you put him as a book in the National Football League. Now, he's projected to go no later than, I think it's 12 to Philadelphia is where they're picking. That's a big jump for him. If he would ever slip, it'd be a fascinating pick. Don't see it happening, but I wanted to mention his name.
No, there's so many different things that could actually take place on draft night. I know the Dallas Cowboys were saying they didn't see CeeDee Lamb slipping to them, and they just couldn't turn him up. So who knows what may happen this year as things shape out. Charley, we spend so much time talking about the first round and names that could be there. And as you get later into the draft, as I think as you've said, it's like throwing darts trying to figure out who would be available. But that's why the teams do their homework to put guys in different groupings. Now, Washington did a pretty good job in round 3 over the past few years. You mentioned Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson. Both of them have really stepped up now as well. But what about when you get to like day 3 or so? Why is it teams can be successful? Or kind of should I say, how can teams be successful when you get to day 3 of the draft?
Yeah, let's just talk about two things here. The odds of being successful and then how you are successful. Okay, what are the odds? I did a 10-year study on the draft, and I said, at the end of 4 years, are you a starter? Because that really tells you something right there. And it could be with your team or some other team. Fourth round, 25%. Fifth round, 20%. Sixth and seventh, 9%. So that's your historic percentage on getting a starter in those rounds. So it's not very high. So how are you successful? One, put an emphasis on it. Look at more tape than other people do in your meetings in those rounds. Seattle has done a great job in those rounds, okay? And I think it's because they put an emphasis on it. Then the second thing is you want a clear picture from your coaches of what they're looking for, a simplistic outline of what they're looking for so that you slot those players in there. You're not going to get all the characteristics, but for example, at corner, if you value speed, okay, that's something. If he doesn't have speed, let's take him off. We valued arm strength in a quarterback. We took Mark Rippon in the 6th round. Why? Because the guy had a cannon for an arm and he was smart. He couldn't move, but he had a cannon for an arm and he was smart. So we built on that and he became a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Then your coaches. good coaches can take players and develop them. We had some great coaches when I was with the team, and especially at quarterback, and they developed players like Mark Rippon, Jay Schrader, Stan Humphries, who went to another team. So coaching, time spent, and having a clear vision of what you want give you a roadmap for success in those rounds. But the odds are slim, but you can still do it.
We have seen it done, but it usually takes a few years, as you said, to see exactly how it does play out and pan out. Charley, thank you so much for joining us. Do you enjoy doing these like mock drafts? I feel like you're constantly working the phones for them, I'm sure.
Well, the mock drafts are a pain in the neck, okay? but it's like anything else. It forces you to write everything down and go through a logical progression of what could happen, okay? And that's a good exercise, okay? I think people take them too seriously. When I was doing this, I never looked at one until the last week of the draft. Now you got a million of these things out there, but what's the basis of them? Okay, there's almost no basis for anything that's written. So the week of the draft, there is some basis sometimes.
All right. Well, look, it's why they call them mock drafts, right?
That's right.
It's the pure definition. Charley, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you now.